Pattern recognition. Pattern recognition is not a quirky talent. It's the brain's oldest survival technology. A nervous system survives by predicting. The better your brain is at finding structure in noise, the more accurately it can answer the only question that mattered for most of human history. What happens next? Where is danger likely to appear? Which choices lead to food, shelter, alliance, and which choices end the story? That's why one of the most common, weird high IQ habits is also one of the most fundamental. You notice patterns everywhere. Some people pick up repeating dynamics in groups, who interrupts whom, who defers, who quietly controls the room. Others spot anomalies in everyday data. The train that always runs late on certain days, the spending pattern that doesn't match the paycheck, the way a random playlist somehow repeats the same mood. Others can't watch a film without quietly forecasting the next beat. On the surface, it can look like overanalysis. Under the hood, it's compression, turning a messy world into a workable internal map. Psychologically, this kind of pattern work sits close to what researchers call fluid reasoning, the ability to solve novel problems and infer rules without being told. It leans on working memory, the capacity to hold multiple pieces of information in mind while you test a hypothesis. You're not just noticing, you're comparing, updating, and checking what fits. And here's the detail that separates insight from illusion: testing. A strong mind doesn't just connect dots. It asks whether the dots truly belong to the same picture. It can feel weird to other people because most brains are happy to accept a pattern as soon as it feels plausible. High cognitive ability often shows up as a second step, the instinct to challenge your own conclusion, to ask, what would prove me wrong? That habit feeds naturally into the next quirk: relentless curiosity. If your brain keeps building models of reality, it keeps discovering gaps, places where the map is incomplete. Curiosity is what happens when those gaps feel rewarding instead of irritating. It's the mental itch that won't stop until you scratch it. This is the person who can't leave a question alone. One fact becomes 3 tabs, which becomes a late-night deep dive into subjects nobody assigned: deep-sea chemistry, ancient warfare, how memory works, why crows seem to hold grudges. From the outside, it looks like distraction. From the inside, it's information foraging, a brain instinctively hunting for data that improves prediction. Curiosity also changes learning itself. When you're genuinely curious, attention sharpens, memory sticks. The mind starts linking new information to old information automatically because it's trying to close the gap. This is why some people don't study the way others do. They chase questions until understanding forms, almost by accident. Daydreaming. The brain isn't built to stay locked on outward tasks all day. When external demands drop, in the shower, on a walk, in a slow meeting, attention loosens and the mind turns inward. Neuroscientists often link this to the default mode network, a set of regions more active during self-generated thought, remembering, imagining, replaying, simulating. In plain language, it's the brain's internal laboratory. That lab is constantly running scenarios. If I say this, what will happen? If I change careers, what will my life look like? If this system fails, where's the weakest point? It's not always pleasant, but it's powerful. Creativity often depends on it, because creativity is, in part, recombination. The brain takes ideas stored in different places and tests new pairings. That's why solutions arrive when you stop forcing them. The conscious mind relaxes, and background processes begin incubating a new angle until it surfaces as a sudden, almost unfair aha. The shower doesn't make you smarter. It just gives your internal lab fewer interruptions. Overthinking. Now put pattern detection and daydreaming together, and you get a habit that people love to criticize until it saves them. Overthinking is the mind running simulations before it commits. If I do this, what happens next? Who gets affected? What's the hidden cost? What's the best and worst case? What's the most likely outcome if nothing goes according to plan? In psychology, these abilities are related to executive functions: planning, inhibiting impulses, comparing options, and holding multiple variables in mind. The brain's control center can be extraordinarily useful and exhausting. If you've ever stood in a grocery aisle analyzing a choice that should take 10 seconds, nutrition, price, ethics, long-term health, environmental impact, you felt that engine running. You're not incapable of deciding. You're refusing to decide with incomplete modeling. The downside is decision fatigue. Executive processing burns energy. The same system that produces sharp analysis can, under stress, turn into rumination, replaying the same scenario without generating new information. A practical difference separates the two. Productive overthinking builds options. Rumination repeats. One expands the map. The other loops the same road. High IQ minds often benefit from a simple move. Externalize the model. Put the variables on paper. Once the brain sees the system clearly, it stops trying to keep the whole chessboard balanced in working memory. Productive disorder. If your mind does a lot of internal modeling, your physical environment may look suspicious. A messy desk, especially the kind where you still know exactly where everything is, can be less about chaos and more about cognitive priorities. Some people use cleanliness as an external control system. Others use space as an external memory system. Piles become categories. Objects become reminders. The desk becomes an archaeological record of your attention. Layers of what mattered this week stacked over what mattered last month. This is not an argument for living in filth. There's a difference between dirty chaos and functional disorder. But for certain minds, strict tidiness can feel like wiping away useful cues. Psychological research has even suggested that disorderly environments can nudge people toward more novel, original thinking, possibly because mess signals freedom from convention. Order tells you, follow the rules. Disorder whispers, try something else. Self-talk. Another habit many strong thinkers use, usually in private, is talking to themselves, not as a symptom, but as a tool. Language isn't only for communicating outward, it can also steer attention inward. Saying, find the keys, check the counter, then the jacket pocket, turns a vague intention into explicit instructions. This kind of self-talk can reduce cognitive load, keep complex tasks organized, and interrupt emotional spirals. Some people even shift into third-person self-talk, using their own name or you, because it creates distance. It's like stepping out of the storm to look at the weather map. You're still in the situation, but you're not fused to it. Now, once you understand that high-level thinking often means operating on multiple layers at once, another unusual habit makes sense. Sarcasm. Sarcasm is layered meaning. You hold the literal statement and the intended message simultaneously. Detect the mismatch, infer intent, and confirm shared context. That's a lot of processing for a single sentence. And it relies on theory of mind, the ability to model what someone else knows, believes, or intends. This is why sarcasm can sound sharp and still be cognitively playful. Some research suggests that engaging with sarcasm can increase creative thinking in the moment because it forces abstraction, stepping away from literal surface meaning and operating on a deeper symbolic level. It's mental flexibility wearing a smirk. Of course, sarcasm only works when trust is high. Without shared context, layered meaning turns into noise. A sophisticated brain still has to choose the right tool for the right environment. Humor and self-amusement. Humor in general is an underestimated cognitive signal. A good joke often requires pattern detection, timing, and fast connections between distant ideas. It's a tiny act of problem-solving delivered at conversational speed, and some people take it one step further. They laugh at their own jokes, even when nobody else does. That can look awkward. But it can also reflect cognitive independence, enjoying the connection you made without needing immediate social validation. Your internal evaluation doesn't collapse just because the room stayed quiet. It's a small sign that your mind isn't constantly outsourcing its judgment to the crowd. Now, we enter the social world, where intelligent people often develop habits that seem weird only because society assumes one default social mode. The first is dislike of small talk. Small talk is not useless. It's social calibration. It signals friendliness, checks for shared norms, and helps strangers coordinate safely. In evolutionary terms, it's low-stakes grooming, the verbal equivalent of we're good, we're safe, we belong. But small talk is low bandwidth by design. It avoids complexity. It avoids uncertainty. It avoids the kind of conversation that could reveal disagreement, vulnerability, or depth. If your mind craves mechanisms, the why underneath things, small talk can feel like reading the title of a book and never opening it. You're not rejecting people. You're rejecting conversation that never deepens. For some high IQ personalities, depth isn't a preference. It's how connection feels real. This often pairs with another quirk: selective friendships. Some people maintain wide circles. Others keep a small, high-quality network. Fewer relationships, but deeper ones. Social life has real cognitive costs. Tracking context, reading nuance, repairing misunderstandings, staying emotionally present, remembering details that matter. A mind that spends a lot of energy thinking may invest social energy where it yields the most meaning. Not 30 acquaintances, 3 people who can handle nuance, who don't require constant performance, who make you feel more like yourself instead of less. And that's where the alone time habit returns: solitude. Solitude isn't necessarily loneliness. For many high IQ people, it's a controlled environment. Fewer inputs, fewer social calculations, more room for integration. It's where the internal laboratory can run without interruption. It's where the mind can do maintenance, consolidate memories, organize ideas, and build the next version of the map. A few additional quirks show up often enough in psychology to be worth mentioning. Not as guarantees, but as recurring patterns. One is being a night owl. Some studies have found links between later chronotypes and slightly higher performance on certain cognitive measures. Part of it may be biology, part of it may be environment. Late hours can be quieter, with fewer interruptions, and for some people that quiet becomes a focus amplifier. The important point is still physical. The brain runs on sleep, whatever your schedule, and consistent rest usually matters more than the clock. Dark and complex humor. Another is an unusual taste for dark or complex humor. Black humor often mixes taboo topics, irony, and emotional distance. Understanding it can require cognitive control, holding the seriousness of the subject while also processing a symbolic, detached interpretation. Complexity demands processing power and the ability to hold 2 emotional truths at once. This is heavy, and this is a joke, is a surprisingly advanced form of mental flexibility. None of these habits are an IQ test, but together they form a recognizable cognitive style, a brain that models, searches, simulates, and refuses to live entirely on autopilot. In the right environment, these quirks don't look strange at all. They look like a mind doing its natural work. If you learned something new today, make sure to subscribe for more videos that explain fascinating ideas clearly and simply. I create content designed to expand your understanding and spark your curiosity. Tap the bell icon so you don't miss future videos.